That's straight. Now the resurrection. Now that message is even, I mean, that's, I don't know if you know this, but let me just start from here. Watch. Here's what it boils down to. Christ, there's always going to be a movement to put Christ in a certain bag, you know, in a certain situation, in a certain position. There's always going to be that movement afoot. And what would that position and what would that movement and what would that place be? That place and that position would be anywhere where we can manipulate him into what we fucking want. That's exactly where it would be. And that's what we do with everything. That's the way a human being is put together. He is put together in such a way to where he manipulates everything within his fucking grasp into what he wants it to be and what he would like it to be in relationship to him. Okay? And I've touched on this before, and it's cut and dry. When, you know, as soon as they invented the ability to split the atom, the first fucking thing they did is build an atom bomb. And after they built the fucking atom bomb, they dropped it on somebody. Why? Because they manipulated that force into what they wanted it to be, and they manipulated it into something they could use to do what the fuck they were doing. You see what I'm saying? And that's just the way a human being is put together. I'm a human being. I know that that's the way I'm put together, and I know that that's a part of my situation. That's the way I am. That's, you know, but that's the part of me that I'm not that interested in, really, if you really want to know. Because I'm not that interested in it, because now that I see that human beings on the whole are not really that defendable as a creature, if you know what I'm saying. In other words, it's impossible to defend a guy that splits the atom, builds an atom bomb, and drops it on another poor son of a bitch. You can't defend that guy. In other words, that guy is fucking as obvious as it can get that there's something wrong with that fucking guy, no matter who he is. I'm talking about the human race in general. There's something wrong with the entire human race. You know, it's got some kind of bent that can't control itself from doing shit that is fucking suspect. Can we start from there? And splitting the atom and turn it into an atom bomb, that's fucking suspect. I don't know if you know that or not. I don't know if I'm telling you something really fucking new. But that's definitely something suspect about, you know what I mean? If we could stand outside of the human race and we could be looking at the human race and we would see it do what it's doing, we would be saying to ourselves, you know, there's something wrong with that fucking with that situation down there, because they are self-destructive. In other words, I'm assuming that life has a tendency to want to, from what we see in nature, from what we can see of life, life has a tendency to want to stay alive. That's the first fucking thing life has, is a tendency to want to stay alive. Now you've got this fucking part of life that has a tendency to want to fuck it up and bring it to death. Now you've got a problem. Here you've got a guy that has a tendency to want to stay alive, and he's fucking acing himself like there's no tomorrow. That guy has a problem. Right? Because the tendency of life is to want to stay alive. Now you've got this guy that has this tendency, but can somehow override this tendency to the degree where he could fucking make himself extinct. That's how good he can override this natural drive, this natural tendency that a human being has to stay alive. You don't think there's something wrong with that creature? So, I mean, well, anyways, fuck it. It doesn't matter whether you think there's something wrong with that creature or not. The fact is that there is something wrong with that creature, and what's wrong with that creature is what's in the Bible, what's in God's thing. And God's already telling us that that's what's wrong with us. God's not breaking any great revelatory news to us in that respect. You know, God is saying that man is fucked up. He's sin. He's broken the connection to God. That's what sin is. You know, the broken connection, the inability to measure up to God's perfection. You know, and God's saying that basic sin, you know, the overall sin is the inability to measure up to the perfection, which translates to you're going to want to go your own way and do your own shit in your own fashion and to where it pleases you without considering God. That's what man's basic drive is. You know, it's in religious parlance, it's man is going to go his own way, and he's going to turn everybody to his own way. You see what I mean? Man has a tendency to stray and go and want to get things together his own self in his own way. And then he's not happy just to do that. He turns everybody to that way. And, of course, it's the most powerful is going to do it the fastest. The guy that's the most powerful, that guy's going to do it at the fucking speed of light. like, for instance, in our case today, the United States, this ass-kicking powerful nation, the most powerful nation in the world, they want to get everybody straightened out and make sure that people understand that democracy is a righteous happening thing. And so because they're the most powerful, they're turning everybody to their own way. You see what I mean? They're turning people, they're going a certain way, and they're turning the entire world to that way. Because that's the way man is. I hope I'm not breaking any fucking, tremendously new news to you. That's just the way man is. And that's all accounted for in the Bible and in the Testament of God. God's got all that under control. God knows how we are, okay? Let's just start from there. God knows exactly how we fucking are. So the resurrection, let's get back to that just for a second. I mean, the thing about talking about the resurrection that's a hassle is that it takes, it's so beautiful a message. It's such a well put together, intelligent, totally cover all bases type of message that you want to spend hours just telling, rapping about it and getting it straight and making people understand what the message really is. And so, okay, the resurrection, here it is. Basically, I'm going to try to boil it down for you as good as I can. And it's fucking simple. There's nothing like a big fucking complicated deal. But it's very important because the movement afoot in relationship to Christ is to try to put Christ in a camp with a lot of other religious leaders, of the world. And this is the Jesus seminar and all those people and shit. They want to homogenize Christ in such a way to where he's a non-threatening, non-threatening kind of entity. You see what I mean? Non-threatening kind of situation where you could be a Christian as well as you could be anything else. And unfortunately, in Christianity, as gentlemanly as God is, I got to say, God's a gentleman, because God doesn't come down here right now and appear in front of me and enslave me even more than I am. See, if God were to appear in front of you, you'd be enslaved to God for the rest of your life. You'd be standing on a street corner, fucking yelling at the top of your lungs about God because he appeared right in front of you and he enslaved you by doing that. And that's not, it's okay. Obviously, it's okay because God's doing it. But, if you were to take it in humanly terms, it could be rude to do in a sense because instantaneously your life has changed. Your life, even though it's for the better and even though it's right and everything like that, it's a hell of an imposition, It's a hell of a demand instantaneously that happens to you right then and fucking there. So God, let me put it this way. God hasn't appeared in front of me and done that to me. And I know he hasn't done it to Dr. Scott because Dr. Scott tells us that he hasn't. And so I don't know anybody that he has done it to except the guys in the Old Testament. And those guys were fucking pissed. A lot of those guys didn't like that shit. Abraham, it took him a fucking shitload of time to get to, to cut to what God told him to do in the first place. The man's tendency is not to follow the directions that good. And so God was doing that in the Old Testament, though. He was standing up right in front of folks, man, and telling them exactly what's coming down the line. Now, so in these particular times, he's a little bit more gentlemanly, and that's what I'm trying to get at. And God's a gentleman in that sense, But then you've got this other thing where it doesn't seem like there's much room for being polite. And that is that you're either with him or against him. You see? Now, that doesn't sound too polite. That doesn't sound like, like there's a lot of room in there. There's the room between you're either with him or against him is so fucking minuscule that, that's it. You're either with him or you're against him. Now, that's not a. If you stop and think about that, you're either with him or against him. If you're not with him, you're actually against him. That's a severe situation you got going there. So the Jesus seminar people and all the thrust that man can put into homogenizing Jesus into this acceptable character, that you can be with or not with, because you know, he's this cool guy running around saying all these cool things, and that's all he is a human being doing this. That's what the movement of foot is that man has inside of his entire body, is to make Christ that particular kind of entity that you can either accept or not accept. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening at all. And so it's important to know that that's not what's happening. And the resurrection is your biggest clue to the fact that that's not what's happening. Because Christ, first of all, was running around. So anyways, I hope we got that straight. I hope we got that clear. That the world wants Christ not to be this threatening force that you either have to be with or you have to be against. You see, that's fucking, I mean, that's hard to swallow. Just stop and think about it when you get a chance. You know, you're either with him or you're against him. You know, that's hard to swallow. And so the world doesn't like that shit, and so they want to change it into something else. And how they change it into something else is they get Christ to be something that you don't necessarily have to be with. And if you're not with him, you're not necessarily against him, you know, because he's just cool, groovy character running around just spouting off groovy things. See, he's not really to be accounted to. He's not really the Son of God, the Son of God. He's just, you know, another great religious leader. You know, unfortunately, Christ was running around saying things that great religious leaders don't say. Okay. Great religious leaders don't run around saying, I am the way, the truth, and the light. See what I mean? Great religious leaders run around, the first thing that makes a great religious leader is that he can tell about himself that he's got as many problems as you do, and he's trying to show you how to resolve those problems through a religious format. And the first thing you notice about a religious leader, or you should notice, is the guy's humble. So the guy's not running around saying, I. The guy you're looking at. You know, Christ was running around saying, I am the way, the truth, and the light. You know, pointing right to himself. When he asked his disciples, he said, drop every fucking thing you're doing and follow me. See, Christ was saying that. Follow me. In other words, fuck everything you thought you were doing. Follow me. And we'll take it from there. Now, that's what he was saying. And he was saying things like he saw Satan cast down from heaven. That he was there with God when all that shit was taking place. He was there. He was saying that. And so, you know, you've got, Christ is not a groovy guy running around saying groovy things. So I'll come back next week and I'll pick up exactly where I left off right now to talk to you and tell you about this resurrection situation, how important and how crucial and pivotal it is to Christianity. So I'll see you later.